So the Government of India Act that we'll be studying today is 1858 Government of India Act. Now students, we know that in 1857 our first war of independence had happened. The Britishers call it to be the Great Mutiny, while in India we call it to be the first fight for liberation. What exactly had happened? Essentially what had happened was that there was a growing resentment among the Indian rulers against the Britishers. This resentment led to a kind of revolt that happened. It also led to a kind of unsettlement, a resentment among the people of Indian community which were a part of the British forces. As such, a very big mutiny broke, which became a very big hassle for the Britishers to suppress. As such, at that time, it was decided back home in Britain, that it is now necessary that those important steps are being taken, which can take in account all sorts of maladministration and all sorts of poor governance which is happening back in India. Britishers knew that India is a very important source of economic benefit for them because there are very deep-seated economic interests with respect to India, be it from standpoint of being the source from which they are able to get the raw materials back to their factories, and for the fact that they had hopes of creating India into a market. That is, whatever finished product that they are creating back home in Britain, in London, they will bring it here and they will sell it to Indians. As such, it was decided that now time has come that we take those important and big steps by which we are able to change the way British India is being governed. To that respect, Government of India Act of 1858, which is also known as the Queen's Proclamation, was passed. Let's try to understand all the important aspects with respect to GOI Act 1858. So the first thing that we need to understand is that it marked as the beginning of a new chapter, very much understandable. It was known as the Act for Good Government of India, and what essentially it provided for two things. First, liquidation of East India Company, and second, transfer of powers to the Crown. What exactly do we mean by liquidation of East India Company? Now students, if we were to analyze the evolution of East India Company, what we see is the fact that as the British control over the India strengthened, the role they had for East India Company kept on getting diluted. By the time we reached 1858, what exactly do we see? That it was decided by the British parliamentarians that essentially there is no use of East India Company anymore. The idea of having a company to be a stakeholder in the decision making in India with respect to the administrative steps that needs to be taken in India seems to be a very poor idea, more so considering the previous experience of the British government in India. As such, the first major decision that was taken in 1858 Government of India Act was the liquidation of East India Company, that is, abolition of this company altogether. Secondly, what happened? Obviously, transfer of powers had to be happen, that is, powers with respect to the government, territorial powers and revenue powers were now shifted completely to British Crown. It will now be under the name of British Crown. The powers of British India will be exercised. The growing resentment in England against the company rule reached its climax with the mutiny of 1857, a point that I just explained, that it was because of the mutiny it was realized by the British parliamentarians. Now the time has come that we need to bring an end to East India Company. Now what happened? Mutiny was suppressed, but there was ripples of fear in England. Why? For the simple reason, India had a lot of economic potential with respect to the economic interest which the Britishers had, the businessmen over the Britishers had, the industrialists had in India because the raw material that was coming back home. As such, it was imperative on the part of British government to take those measures by which they are able to control British India in a more prudent manner, in a more effective manner. So, Lord Stanley introduced another bill. This bill was called as an Act of a Better Government in India, and this bill went on to become Government of India Act 1858. You don't really have to remember this point. Essentially, what we need to remember was that it was Lord Stanley who had brought that bill, which eventually became Government of India Act 1858. I hope this point is clear. Now, the second thing which is very important for us to remember is the features of this bill. So, let's try to understand the features one by one. The first feature was that it led to the abolition of company rule. What happened? That from 1858 onwards, company rule will be abolished. Secondly, court of directors will be abolished. And third, board of control will be abolished. A very important point that you need to keep in mind here, that it was the Act of Government of India which led to abolishment of company rule, court of directors, board of control. What is court of directors? Those set of people which used to represent the interests of the East India Company, they formed court of directors. Who were board of control? Those set of people who were appointed by the British Parliament to represent the crown, to represent the interest of the British Parliament in the decision making. So both court of directors as well as board of control were abolished by Government of India Act 1858. And students, again, this may very well be a question that can be asked in your prelims examination. There are statement-based questions that are being asked. This could be one of those statements where you would need to identify whether it is true or false. Hence, what exactly do we see? This act led to abolishment of dual government. We know this dual government was brought by Pitt's India Act. We have already studied that in a previous module. Another important thing to note here, the doctrine of lapse, the principle of doctrine of lapse was withdrawn. What is doctrine of lapse? We have already studied that in our history module. What does it say? It was essentially brought by Lord Dalhousie. It said that for all the kingdoms where there is no legal heir, that kingdom will be subsumed. The administration and the power with respect to that kingdom will be subsumed by the British India, by the British government over there, by the company over there. Now, what exactly happened? Because of this policy of doctrine of lapse, the British government was creating more enemies than friends. There was a kind of lack of faith, a lack of goodwill on the part of Indian princes and Indian kings, because they always had a kind of suspicion towards the East India Company and towards the British India. As such, it was decided, in order to extend goodwill, in order to get the support of these princely kings, these kings, the small kingdoms that were there in India, we need to take those measures by which we are able to inspire confidence in them. As such, it was decided that there is no use for principle of doctrine of lapse and we will remove it. Then, second important provision of Government of India Act 1858 was creation of a very important office called Office of Secretary of State for India. What is Office of Secretary of State for India? Now that students, we have understood that it was decided that we would need to end the body of court of directors and the body of board of controls. We would need to make sure that some other body is performing these functions, because although these bodies are not there, the functions they used to perform still needs to be performed. As such, we need to create a different mechanism by which we are able to get these functions done. What exactly was this new mechanism? They created a new office called Office of Secretary of State for India. Who exactly will be Office of Secretary? Who exactly will become the Secretary of State for India? The Secretary of State for India will be first a person which will be given powers of both Court of Directors and Board of Control. And who exactly will be the person? He will be a member of the British Cabinet and will be responsible ultimately to British Parliament. Let me just explain this point. So we have just understood that essentially it was felt by 1857 that there is no use for East India Company in order to administer the British India provinces. It was realized that we would need to create a system by which whosoever is controlling the affairs in India, whosoever is administering the affairs in India, is being responsible towards the British Parliament, so that there is more accountability, there is more transparency as to what is happening in India, that is British India. It was thus decided that essentially we would want a system by which a person who is responsible to the British Parliament should be given charge of controlling affairs of British India. So what was decided? It was decided, let's create an office called Secretary of State for India. This office will be manned by a person who is a cabinet member, number one. Since only a member of parliament can become a cabinet member, this member of parliament will be responsible to the British Parliament. As such, British parliamentarians can ask questions to this member of parliament and this person will be required, will be mandated to give answers to it. So what exactly has happened? They have shifted from a system where there was lack of transparency and accountability to a system where the British Parliament can hold Secretary of State accountable and can ask questions with respect to the decisions